Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This will be my next Legacy of Yangchen chapter analysis video. This one will be for chapter 18, which is called Hooked. So we continue the kind of gambling kind of setup. We know kind of where we're heading towards, and this more or less gets us kind of up to speed with the direction. There's still like a little bit before we catch up with one of the previous chapters, but we're pretty much right kind of in there at this point. So a little bit on the longer side of a chapter here, but there's some very, very good stuff here, including a very notable kind of event that Iwashi talks about from his past, and how it relates to his kind of views as a kind of leader, world leader. And it really has an impact on Yangchen, and I think it's probably one of the best parts overall of this section of the book from a character point of view. But in general, there's some nice stuff going on here, because like Chaise's in the background, and even though she's not a huge focus throughout this kind of sequence, there's little bits and pieces that are nice to see. So we'll jump in here kind of straight away. Best to go through this one kind of just kind of page by page. So, we're pretty much on the verge of kind of getting down to business here. They kind of prepare the game. We have a little bit of a kind of a flashback to, okay, here's how we decided that Kavik was the one who was going to be doing most of the playing. And basically, you know, everyone agrees, including Jujinta, who has a lot of kind of disdain towards Kavik these days. Even he admits Kavik is the best player I've ever seen. If you need to beat Iwashi, he is the one to do it. So Kavik is in on this mission. That's why this is happening here. So we're just kind of on the way to actually have to play the game. And it's just this kind of funny moment, you know, and that was how Yangchen found herself walking down the hall arm in arm with none other than Zhongdu Chaisi. And it's just this like interesting point where it's the hero of the book, the kind of main villain of the book, and here they are just acting like they're best friends effectively, because they know each other from before. And the Zhongdu of Jandari and the Avatar, why they got on famously, hard workers, both common interests, lent each other books, you know, that's the story about it. Chaisi does make a comment, you know, ooh, I admire how you brought Bin Shangs in line. You know, one might almost think they're suddenly afraid of you. And it's sort of the case. She is kind of blackmailing them to a certain degree, using the fear of like the Earth King kind of against them. But she's like, oh, people are capable of great change. When tended to properly, the common good serves us back. Tein and Noahi and the rest simply came to the truth. So after this, we just get a kind of fun moment where Chaisi just shows the kind of casual nature of all the Zhongdus, even though they're like pseudo world leaders. She's just like, Iwashi, that painting's a fake. The artist actually signs her work like this, not like that. The forger did a decent job, but it's definitely a fake. And Iwashi's just like, hey, I'll sell it to someone the first chance I get. And she's just like, so you're going to keep this forever? Guess so. And Yangchen's almost like frustrated by this, because she almost imagined that all of the Zhongdus would just kind of almost be at each other's throats to a certain degree, always trying to get an edge. And so this kind of casual advice giving and almost like fun friendship that everyone seems to have is a bit of a kind of almost off-putting to Yangchen in all of this. It's just noted here as well that, like, yeah, this is why she didn't get along with the White Lotus. Mama Yunarak would say something like this of like, don't bring emotions in, don't be a child. This is how the meat gets butchered. Don't take it personally that this is the way that it actually is. So, they go into the parlor here. They kind of set up the game here. But there's one other thing of note here, and that is this table covered in blood. And Yangchen, and especially Kavik, are shocked to see this, because it honestly looks like the table is just completely covered in blood. But Iwashi says, it's dramatic, isn't it? It's blood lacquer. It's a product exclusive to Taku, and explains that like it's just a what is it? Refined from the resin of itchleaf trees. It looks like blood, but it's not actually blood. And it's just noted that the artisan who made it has some interesting impulses. There might be some dark secrets there. That's why it looks quite kind of brutal and kind of devastating. But Yangchen is kind of like, I'm not particularly upset about it that it looks like it's a kind of blood splattered table. It's more that she notices that the wood that the table is kind of made from is actually a foggy swamp tree. And she can see from the kind of ring kind of pattern just how insanely old this tree is. And she's kind of almost more upset about the tree from the foggy swamp that was cut down by effectively Iwashi's orders. And she goes a little bit into kind of God avatar mode here a little bit, kind of thinking about how like some tiny pest, like a human, chopped down this ancient tree just to have like a table, and how this is sort of this deeply unfair thing. She remembers old iron, and that like old iron would probably understand why I'm so annoyed about this. And she thinks to herself in a way like, what if I simply, you know, closed my hand around Iwashi and simply plucked him like one would a biting insect? And Kavik notices that she's getting a little bit like she's kind of like doing something like this, and like Kavik notices that like, oh no, I think she's kind of almost falling into some sort of a like past life avatar thing here. And so he just kind of like bumps into her, acting like he's shocked at the table, the blood splattered table, and is like, I seem to be okay now. And she's like, oh yeah, it was only a slip, and they just get through it that way. And it's just an interesting kind of moment that this has kind of upset Yangchen, seeing this happen here. She already doesn't super like Iwashi, but this is kind of added to it there. Iwashi then gets down to kind of business, and it's like, okay, before we even start, the stakes, I find anything less than a silver ingot a point not worth the time spent. So he doesn't want any low stakes here. He wants to play a game that's actually meaningful. Yangchen tries to like argue it down and be like, hey, I'm an air nomad, I don't really have money. But he's like, no, you control the budget of Bin just take what you need from there. And it's like, oh, this is how casual this all is. Gambling with public funds. It apparently happens all the time. That's what's going to happen here. But he's like, okay, just to get you to play, I'll sweeten the deal with the greatest treasure from my collection. And so what he takes out is Yangchen's glider staff. And it's this shocking moment because it's like, where did they get that from? But then you realize, oh yeah, she sold it off at the start of the book to raise money for Bin And somehow Iwashi has very quickly managed to grab it up from whatever auction it was sold at here. So he mentions, I bought this at the Bin silent auction. He paid a lot for it. She confirms that yes, it is mine, or at least it used to be. Kavik is furious at this as well. He's kind of like, you know, give that to the avatar almost, but he has to remain in character, so he can't be seen to like speak out like this. But Yangchen is a little bit taken aback by this, especially when he's like, but wait, answer me this. If it's yours, why is the name Jetson carved into it? She's like, the mark of the maker. And Iwashi's response is, maybe I should sand that off. I don't want people getting confused. So he'd rather sand off the name of the maker, just so it doesn't confuse people into thinking that like, oh, it's Jetson's staff, not Yangchen's. People not knowing kind of air nomad culture around the staffs, that sometimes you make your own, sometimes someone close to you makes it for you, and that's all he wants to do. And he's like, if you want to play, all you have to do is play also. This way you have a chance to get the avatar staff back, and sort of, you know, it'll make a fine present for your boss. And again, this is sort of part of the game they're playing with Kavik as well, of like Iwashi almost hoping to take advantage of like Kavik might play poorly, trying to basically win this prize back for his date effectively. So Chaisi is interested in this as well, and she's like, okay, I'll do something similar. I'll also put in a kind of item of note as well. So she takes out a single black pearl on a string, and it's described like it's an incredible kind of specimen of a pearl here, a black pearl. She mentions that this specimen is the result of my first successful dive as a youth. the night abalone, where I grew up, would very rarely produce pearls of a unique color, but only in the island's most dangerous waters. So again, this is referencing back to the very first chapter of the book, that Chai-Si took part in those dives on her island to get the various items from the island. And one of the most rare things that she ever found, of course, was this black pearl that she actually held onto all of this time. So very interesting that she's kind of putting this up as part of the stakes in this game here. Iwashi does make a comment about, oh right, this mysterious home island of yours that no one's ever visited in years. You probably just got it from a common Jianghui clam. I'm surprised the dye, like he thinks it's a fake, it's just you put black dye on it to make it look like that, but it's actually real, of course. Yangchen is kind of like, no, I'm not sure if we want to do this because we will be betting with effectively the lives of the people of Bin using the budget, but we know if they commit to it, they do use the budget. Kavik plays his role. I would like to play. Trust me, we'll be richer. You'll have your glider back. It'll be great. And Yangchen is forced to be like, yes, this is what we have to do. This is the whole reason we're here. Remember, Kavik kind of has to point out to her, remember the ship. He can't go to the ship in the next while. Like, we have to distract him for long enough for everyone else to get in and get out, and not enough time has passed yet. So the game is about to begin here. So the tiles are put out, of course. They're playing Sparrow Bones here. And immediately Iwashi starts by being like, hey, anyone got any gossip? Chai-Si is just very casual. Oh, the Sawan are up to no good again. And Yangchen is just like, wait, what? Again? What are they doing this time? My sources tell me they are refortifying the old strongholds across Ma'inka, not for a war now, but for much later in the future. It's a very long-term play, but smart, given how they've been locked out of the highest level of Fire Nation politics. I approve. So Yangchen is kind of like, no, surely you're mistaken there. But no, it's true. Iwashi says, I sold them the stone, good Earth Kingdom granite. For some reason, they were afraid of quarrying their home island. And so Yangchen's kind of thinking to herself of like, she's angry because it's like, why can't they just simply live? The deal that I created with the spirits allows them to like survive so long as they stick to it. Why do they keep striving and trying to like seek advantages basically? And she kind of thinks to herself, like, if I confronted them over this, they would just say, we are not breaking your rules. But she is still very furious about this. Now, it is a bit of an interesting one. I feel maybe a little bit more nuance could have been given here because I suppose it is technically true. Like, they are not breaking the rules, like, at all here. But she seems to just want them to just be completely, like, neutral in this and not even do anything. I suppose it's more of just like in the future, the fact that they are preparing for war is maybe more of in the future is the issue for her. But maybe that could have been like a little bit better explained. Like, I get it. You can't have them break the rules of the spirits again. But, it's also a little bit of like, why is Yangchen so annoyed at them when they're actually kind of doing what they can? But there's maybe some nuance that's maybe lost there because it's not as much detail has gone into here. And Chai-Si is just like, I probably should have advised you the first time to just like leave them to their fate. You can't ask people to change. No lesson is ever truly learned except through pain. So that's Chai-Si's philosophy on this whole thing. Iwashi says, new leaders always have too much faith in humanity. And he tells this story. This is the important and I think really strong part of the chapter here. He tells a story about when he first took the job as Zongdu of Taku when he was young and he had more faith in people and stuff like that. Chai-Si makes a joke about like she actually works hard compared to you. But he notes that, look, okay, yeah, sure, that's me now. I don't work very hard. But the reason I don't work hard now is because I was pretty active and generous early on, and when I was younger, I was committed to it. And so what is the story of what happened here? And he basically says early on in his time as Zongdu, he threw a giant kind of party in the city, an indulgent, what is it called, a grave tidying festival. And he notes that, the entire population of Taku was basically hungover the next morning. He went out for an early stroll that morning, and everyone would come up to him and be like, we love the celebrations, the food, the fireworks, but also they added in, they thought his festival was better than any done by the previous Zongdu Wonsok. And Yangchen, gives something away to Iwashi with her reaction to how the story has gone so far. She can relate to this much more than she wants to give away here, because this is directly relating to the idea of how she feels as a world leader in the world, and how the people that she kind of watches over treat her. It's the Avatar Goon situation of it's the expecting 101 miracles despite the previous 100, and all that will ever be remembered are the failures, that sort of a thing. And he's like, the young Avatar knows where I'm going with this. She knows exactly why I was upset at this, because otherwise you think base level reaction to that is the people liked the celebration and told him that. But he notes here, their praise, the nature of their praise offended me down to my very bones. They graded me like I was some sort of schoolboy with cake crumbs on my face. Who did they think they were, believing they had the right to judge their benefactor? And he's like, Wonsok was a very good Zongdu by every conceivable measure, but the residents of Taku were comfortable smearing his name and stamping upon his work. You should have heard the filth they said about him. Your neck would turn red. And he's like, no, I glimpsed the future that day and realized no matter how much of my spirit I poured into the job, people would talk about me in such terms. I decided then and there not to waste a mote of energy on croaking insects. And Yangchen's response to this is, you got scared of criticism that hadn't even happened yet. So she's joining in here on the kind of, oh, we rib each other here, so I'm going to join in as well. But this is Yangchen kind of saying what in a way is expected of her, but this story has had an impact, and we'll see that as it kind of goes on here. But he says, but I was right. Once the afterglow of the festival wore off, I was blamed for an increase in street pests. Turns out the citizens had littered food everywhere during the celebration. Animals had gorged on the refuse and multiplied faster. And he says, Avatar, your Sauron problem isn't actually with the Sauron, the Fire Nation, or any other nations. The true problem with the world lies deep inside humanity itself. And despite your best efforts, it will never be fixed. Mankind is a poor investment, a barren field. The less you do for it, the better. And Yangchen is like, you are wrong, Iwashi, you are wrong, and you always will be. But then he's like, well, part of you agrees with me, or else your left little finger wouldn't be twitching so. And she notices her own finger, it is doing that. And this is where she kind of realizes that, oh no, I've kind of given this away. This is the kind of truth in a way of the situation. She takes this on board much more than you would ever imagine, because this is exactly what she's been dealing with. And here she has encountered someone who is effectively taking, in a way, the approach that she maybe is considering taking up herself of, what if I just put in no effort? What if I just let kind of mankind make all of these mistakes and never try to kind of correct it? Just let it be. I'm still in my position. If they won't kind of in a way help themselves, why should I help them? Iwashi has already kind of gotten to that point and now has this very kind of skewed view on things. But it is in a way showing Yangchen the future of, this is what she would be like if she was the kind of Avatar, always in the Avatar state, thinking herself above everyone. She would be exactly like Iwashi, and she doesn't like that. but it's so clear throughout this whole thing. She has had feelings like that before about the idea of, I can do all of this stuff that's good, but they'll always still talk badly about the moments where I fail and stuff goes wrong. That was the Avatar Goon situation as well. So I really, really think that is a super strong section of the chapter there. But then we finally get into the idea here. There's a little section here right at the end of this section where it's just Yangchen's just like, okay, we were having an argument about human nature. Chai-Si, do you have one of your own? And she's just like, I believe I mentioned it already. Build your hands, everyone. And if we go back to it, it's, you can't ask people to change. No lesson is ever truly learned except through pain, which is somewhat similar to, I suppose, Iwashi's one of just kind of like almost like, so I just don't put any effort in and let them do whatever happens and don't take any blame for it, basically. And that's why he's is the kind of character he is, where he just is very much like, yeah, I'll squander the budget on gambling if I need to, that sort of thing. So yeah, we get a bit of a comparison here as we start the next section between Paisho and Sparrowbones. Paisho is, of course, an ancient game. Sparrowbones sprung into the world a generation or two before Zito. So it's just established. Yangchen learned the rules, not through her past lives, but she actually learned them when she was younger. She thinks Zito would actually like the game, but he never really got involved in frivolous pursuits like this. It's noted again that Paisho was very much a game of like strategy, but ultimately there was just a victor and a loser at the end, and there was no concept of by how much, whereas Sparrowbones is all about kind of, you can actually win by an incredible amount and earn money from multiple players in the same game, and by a giant margin here. So this is where like we start the game. And it ends effectively almost immediately. Iwashi takes the first draw and is like, feast. What does it say here? Closed-ended stars in the darkness worth 3,000 points, doubled for a self-drawn completion, redoubled for going out on my first turn. That's 12,000 points, more than the 10,000 table limit. The game is over, and everyone owes me some silver, I believe. And they're all like, I haven't even gone yet. What's this about? And he's just like, all the skill in the world could be nulled out by a bit of luck. And Yangchen is thinking to herself, what are the odds of this happening? The game ending with a crazy hand on the first turn. Kavik gives the odds 1 in 3,744. So he's like, he's about to walk out, go back to his ship. They haven't spent enough time here distracting him. But then he turns around and is like, it's over unless you want to keep playing. Open stakes, no table limit this time. And this is where Yangchen is kind of freaking out. They've lost. She's been hustled here, but they have to continue. And Kavik is trying to kind of keep it up. Like, surely that was just bad luck. We have to go again. Very good. I don't think you have too much to worry about, Avatar. My previous win was a fluke. It's not like victories of that magnitude happen every round. And of course, we know it seems like this does happen. And that is kind of exactly what the next chapter is about as well. So things are just getting going from bad to worse here. But that is the end of the chapter. So some very interesting stuff here, where like you obviously get some of the kind of philosophy on being a leader from Chai-Si a little bit, from Iwashi most importantly, and how that relates to sort of Yangchen's ongoing conflict within herself over, is that the approach I should take? I think bringing up the Saowon clan and the fact that they're maybe leaning in a direction that kind of makes Yangchen frustrated, like they'll go against the deal again eventually, it kind of highlights that people just can't seem to help themselves. And that relating to kind of Iwashi's more sort of smaller scale thing, but that just it showed him that why should I bother if the people don't bother type thing. And I love how you could tell Yangchen tries to say the right things, but they can sort of see through her and that she is struggling with this herself. I think it's really strong what they do here. Even the little moment earlier on about the kind of blood lacquer table and the whole idea of like a foggy swamp tree being cut down, and Yangchen kind of feeling like, what if I just went sort of full Avatar spirit mode and just was just like, you have disrespected ancient kind of things, you are eliminated. What would that do? And Kavik, in a way, having to stop her from kind of like falling into that almost. I think that's actually really strong, and stuff like this is what very much makes this game section, which can feel a little bit maybe overdone perhaps over the amount of chapters it gets covered in. Stuff like this makes it really worthwhile because you get some really strong characterization kind of throughout all of this. Even the little bit with Chai-Si and like her putting the kind of pearl up as the stake comes back later on just as a little bit of a connection, even if it's not like incredibly important overall. So and then yeah, just continue on the idea of like, yes, here's the bad, we're on the bad side of things here. The plan is not going very well. How do we turn the tables here? And we're going to see that over the next couple of chapters. But that has been the discussion here. Let me know what your thoughts were on this chapter. But that has been it. Thanks for watching, and bye.